Look, I'm not gonna pull any punches with this one. I'm just gonna be as upfront and honest as possible. These banners are indeed the most banner of all time in the hit video game Genshin Impact. Thanks for watching. Yep, that's the way I'm starting this one. G'day everyone, I'm the Immersive Fish, and welcome to my overview of the 4.1 second phase banners. Thankfully, compared to my usual guide content, this one should be a little more palatable with a lot less info, so hopefully you'll be able to get in, figure out everything you want to know, and get out as quickly as possible. Let's get started, shall we? First and foremost, a couple of little disclaimers. This video is specifically going to focus on the gameplay performance of the banner characters. If you want one of the 5 stars because you like them, you should summon. Simple as that. I will always encourage playing units you like beyond all, while using the optimization and meta knowledge you have to make those characters as good as possible, rather than purely focusing on what's the best of the best. After all, if that's all we cared about, every single one of us would just be playing Xiangling, and there wouldn't be a need to summon for any other characters, right? Also, keep in mind that summoning for 4 stars is a bit of a trap, as you aren't guaranteed to get anyone in particular. Even if you want one of the 4 stars on Raid Up, it's probably worth holding off until they appear alongside a 5 star you actually want. Most importantly, this is just my opinion. While I am informed and relatively up to date with the latest meta knowledge, I'm by no means the world's most knowledgeable person on everything Genshin, so please don't take my word as gospel. If you're interested in the banners, do your research, look around for multiple perspectives, as that will help you form the most balanced opinion overall. With that all out of the way, yeah, this one's gonna be rough. For the character banners, if you don't particularly like either of the 5 stars and are looking at account optimization, especially at a free-to-play level, while both Venti and Wriothesley have their merits, I don't think that either of these banners are worth your primos for a couple of reasons. Beyond all, the 4-star raid ups just aren't that good this time around. Don't get me wrong, Toma is a fantastic unit and without doubt the best 4-star raid up on the banner, but Dori and Chongyun just don't bring enough to the table for me to recommend unless you already have a solid roster and are looking at building units for fun. Secondly, while Venti and Wriothesley are both pretty good units overall, compared with some other truly exceptional 5 stars, they just don't provide an account with as much value. That, coupled with a worst case scenario of a single 5 star setting you back upwards of 320 Aussie dollars, it can be pretty hard to recommend. Finally, Hoyo have made it pretty clear through their usual drip marketing that we have a new Archon next patch, and while I haven't looked into leaks for Farina... No, definitely not. Couldn't be me. I don't think I'm all that out of pocket saying that the Archon of the best element in the game is probably going to be pretty good. Oh, right, yeah, this thing exists too. I should probably summarize that. Alright, so this one is niche, this one is great, but you only have a 37.5% chance of actually getting it. Plus, you get a Favbo free by completing Mondstadt. These two are okay, this one sucks, this one's okay in certain team comps, but sucks outside of them, and Favsword is brilliant. But on a banner like this, it's just not worth going for at all. That is all I'll say on the front of weapons, but when it comes to the characters, let's dive a little deeper. Let's kick this off with probably the most interesting character of the patch. Believe it or not, despite all the Doom posting, Wriothesley is fine. He sits pretty in line with other on-field damage dealers like Wanderer and Yoimiya, and if new characters continue to release, playing into the HP manipulation mechanics of Fontaine, I can potentially see him sitting at a similar level to Ayaka and Ganyu. Don't get me wrong, he isn't breaking any new damage ceilings or anything crazy like that, but he is completely viable if you like him. And there are multiple team options available which will provide relatively comfortable clears in Abyss. If you're really sold on him from the story quest and you want him, Wriothesley won't be a unit you come to regret. But if you don't particularly like him, then I don't think you're missing out on too much by giving him a skip. Oh, and one other core thing that I do think really needs to be noted. While C1 is a pretty major quality of life improvement, unless you consider units like Hu Tao and Neuvillette to be constellation dependent, the rhetoric surrounding his C1 has been very overblown. It's a very good constellation, but it is not at all needed. I don't know if I'm going to have the chance to make a full Wriothesley guide, so just in case, here's a quick little overview. He's an on-field damage dealer with a focus on normal and charged attacks, with a skill that enhances the damage of his normals while draining his HP. That can then be restored by using his charge attacks every 5 seconds. And his burst is a little bit of extra damage for your rotations, and isn't worth focusing on unless you go for C2. As for his build, he's a pretty standard attack scaling DPS. So, attack percent, Cryo bonus damage and crit is the way to go. Madeshisi Hunter is the best artifact set, followed by Shimenawa's Reminiscence, as both provide pretty flexible team options. But if you do build purely for freeze, Blizzard Strayer will give you a touch more crit rate and damage from his burst. Next up, Venti. To the shock of literally no one, he's still pretty good. But in comparison to some other units like Kazuha and Sucrose, he can be a little bit more content dependent, as Hoyo have done a lot since his release to limit how oppressive he can be. When in ideal scenarios against a lot of small spread out enemies, he's the best character in the game, providing unmatched grouping, fantastic batterying, decent damage, and he's Animo, so Viridescent Venero goes brr. But as the game has grown, Floor 12 has lent away from those scenarios, generally being more of a DPS check against large boss type enemies that are mostly immune to crowd control. In these scenarios, while Venti is still okay, he does fall a little bit behind the competition. As such, I see Venti more as a comfort pick than anything else, making content like Domains and earlier Abyss floors where crowd control is of higher value way quicker and less frustrating to get through. But unlike someone like Sucrose, he generally won't be a determining factor in getting through floor 12 if you're struggling to meet those DPS checks. It's pretty much the same situation as Wriothesley. If you like him, and specifically want him, summon. If not, I'd advise skipping over Venti unless you're invested enough to clear content already and are specifically looking for that comfort and quality of life he can provide. Now to the main reason I really don't like recommending these banners. The 4-star lineup is not that great. To keep this short, Toma is probably the best character on the banner overall, being one of the only pyro units in the game oriented around off-field elemental application, and because he does have slower application overall, it won't interrupt other reactions, making him one of the most consistent burgeon triggers in the game. That coupled with a pyro shield to help mitigate the downside of self-damage that comes alongside running burgeon comps, and Toma becomes absolutely invaluable for that archetype. He also has some decent use cases outside of burgeon too, such as being a pyro source and shielder for Wanderer and a burning trigger for Burn Melt Wriothesley. All around, he's just a good unit, but it's the other 4 stars which really detract from the banner. Dory is... I'm actually gonna have to talk about Dory, aren't I? I think that Dory is definitely one of the characters of all time in the hit video game Genshin Impact. That's right, I'm making the same joke twice in one video. Outside of co-op, where admittedly, from what I've heard, her healing capacity is pretty good, I'm still not 100% sold on this character. She seems to be a downgrade to Kuki for most teams which want an electro healer and applicator. She definitely seems like an option, but honestly, unless you're able to get her C4, which admittedly has some fun applications for quicken teams, I don't think Dory provides quite enough to justify using her over other options. She isn't the worst 4-star in the game, but yeah, I don't really know what else to say. I can't recommend Dory for anything outside of haha funny, which admittedly is completely valid, especially if you've already got a decent set of units built. But for the average player, I'm not so sure. Finally, we have Chongyun. While his ability to infuse any on-field melee character's normals with Cryo is very cool, providing some access to some fun off-meta team comps like on-field Shenhe, and being an okay pick for Reverse Melt due to the lack of ICD on his burst, allowing him to output some pretty damn impressive front-loaded numbers, from the perspective of general usability, he's unfortunately outclassed by quite a few other Cryo units in teams that don't require that infusion to function. It's one of those unfortunate scenarios where a character isn't necessarily bad, but they're just beaten out by other units. And unfortunately, one of the characters that does that is Kaya, a character everybody gets for free. So there we have it. The 4.1 second half banners covered to the best of my abilities. With that though, I've got to stick my ass back up in the air because I've got so much to actually get done work-wise. I'm going to try and get a Wriothesley guide out and done before the banner is gone, but I don't 100% know how well I'm going to do with that. And, well, at this point I'm sure a lot of you have been picking up what I've been putting down in terms of liking a certain character, so there's probably going to be a bit of content regarding her too. If you have enjoyed, do the YouTube things down below. For every subscriber, I'll drink 14 protein shakes. I don't know, something like that. Speaking of the YouTube things though, holy hell, thank you all so much for the insane support on the new Vidette guide. I'll keep striving to ensure content is up to that level as well. Thanks again everyone, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Till then though, make sure you all take it easy.